You're listening to a podcast of The Mojo with Steph Renee. Weekdays 10 a.m. till noon on 900 AM WURD.com.
Shout out to all the kids of the 80s who loved this movie, who loved this song in particular, and who looked for an excuse. You know, back then, people too cool to dance now. You know, unless it's perfectly choreographed for a video, out at parties and whatnot, young people aren't getting sweaty dancing to the stuff that they like for the most part, you know.
Lean back and do the rockaway.
Yeah. I did say young kids, Troy. Wow. Okay. When I say young kids, Mike, you can't go back to something that's more than a decade old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's the change. That was the change. That's when it all shifted with Fat Joe. Fat Joe changed it.
That is arts and culture commentary as brought to us by Mike Dennis today. How you doing, Mike?
I'm good. I'm doing great.
I always give you a hard way to go, but it's all out of love.
We have a jam-packed show.
We do indeed, and our first guest is on the line.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you know that Jackie Robinson Day is April 15th. WURD will be out in Fairmount Park celebrating the life and legacy of our civil rights and sports legend, along with a lot of other great things going on. As a matter of fact, I'm probably going to have to leave a little early next week in order to get out there and be in place for all of our activities that are taking place. But whenever we talk about Jackie Robinson, and again, you know, you and I both have a love for documentaries rather than reinterpretations of someone's life.
Right.
And our first guest is involved in a big one that we'll be able to take in on PBS.
Yes, with us on the line is one of the three co-directors of the new documentary Jackie Robinson, Ken Burns' Jackie Robinson, that is airing this Monday and Tuesday, April 11th and 12th on PBS. With us on the line is Mr. Dave Mcmahon.
Hello, Dave, and welcome to WURD.
Thank you so much for having me.
I need to thank you for making this film, because as much as I love 42, I just felt like, wow, they didn't tell the whole story.
Yeah, I love 42 as well. I loved how it was a story for people from 9 to 90, and we were super excited that it did so well. But at the same time, I think we felt like it was not nearly comprehensive enough, and there was a big opening for us to make a film that told the whole story about Jackie Robinson, not a story about a narrow slice of his life, a slice in which he, turned the other cheek to the threats and abuse that he faced, but one that showed him as the outspoken leader that he was, somebody who never let a slight or indignity pass without making a comment about it, and who was out there pushing for equality all the time. And that moment in 47 and in his first couple of years where he kept quiet, that went completely against his character, and we wanted to capture that.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, Mike and I have this conversation all the time, documentary and biopic, that, of course, we have space in our lives for both, that we want to learn more about these historical figures and their life stories. But there is something to be said, and you all clearly were able to dig through archival footage and really put something together that allows us to hear from Jackie Robinson in his own words, which is a rare treat for those of us who weren't around during his heyday or during his real lifetime, to be honest.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Robinson, I think, was almost muzzled by the portrait of him that we've been sharing for a long time. And, we've gone out of our way to celebrate Brian Trickey and to celebrate Pee Wee Reese for allegedly jogging across the diamond and throwing his arm around Jackie to show his support. But we never hear Jackie. And when you go into the archives over at ABC or NBC or CBS or all the other places we went, you find countless hours of him speaking up and speaking out. He was a regular guest on radio programs and on TV shows, and he went to rallies. And if you were there with a camera, you definitely captured King or Abernathy or Shuttlesworth, whoever it was, but you also captured Robinson because he was the most famous black man in America for a period. And he was there. He showed up at the March on Washington with David. He spoke on his son David. He spoke on a side stage. And so he's among the most well-documented Americans of the 20th century, I think probably just short of being documented as much as a president. But we just hadn't spent any time with any of that material. And he's also a prolific writer. He wrote letters, he wrote autobiographies, he had a column in several different newspapers over a decade. And so it's very easy to find where Jackie stood on things. we just had chosen, I think, a simpler, safer narrative.
Now, right, and I've made it very public. Like, I love Ken Burns' jazz. I think it's fantastic.
Yes.
But I always feel like, wow, if only that movie had been made 10 years sooner, we would have had the voices of the actual people that he's talking about in the film.
Yeah.
How great is it that you have Rachel Robinson as one of your lead voices in Jackie Robinson documentary?
The lead voice. She's a superstar, and she was ready to tell this story, and Ken made a film about baseball in 1994, and he would say that Robinson was the moral center of it, and Mrs. Robinson appeared in that film, and I think she was pleased with the portrait that Ken had done, but felt like there was a lot more to be said, and so she went to him and said, if you're interested in a standalone film, I think you should do it. And Ken said, I'd love to, but my schedule is full for a decade. Let me advise you, let me help you find other filmmakers, but I don't think I can make it. She really wanted him to do it, and so she talked to others, but about 15 years into this, he said, okay, Uncle, I'm going to make time, and I'm going to get this funded, and we're going to do it. And boy, she was unbelievable. She sat for us 3 times and gave us something like 6 hours of material, and her recollections and her sort of understanding of her husband and the intimacy that she shared gave us not just a portrait of a great American icon, but a portrait that gave us a love story and a picture of an African-American family moving through the most tumultuous stretches of the 20th century, and what a blessing it was to have her voice, and also to let us think about the Robinsons in a different way than we ever had before.
I'm curious about how you think of your career, your passion for making films, because, it's one thing for us to have conversation about these historical figures, but to actually sit down to pour over hours worth of this material and to have a hand in the beat and flow of how these stories are being told is a magnificent opportunity. How have you been processing the role that you've played in helping to bring the story to light?
Well, I think the big picture would be that to have an opportunity to work with people who I enjoy collaborating with to help give voice to the film that Sarah and Ken and I made before Jackie Robinson was called the Central Park Five, about the 5 teenagers who were wrongly convicted of raping the Central Park jogger in 1989. It was about giving them a voice, letting them tell their story. In many ways, it's the same with Robinson. We know him, we celebrate him, but we hadn't heard him just yet, I think, to this point, to the extent that we could. It was great. But in this style of filmmaking, the opportunity and the amount of time that we're given to dig through these archives, to find photographs that capture a moment that haven't yet been seen or haven't been considered in a certain way, to go into the archives and find this priceless film. And with Robinson, there was so much material that it was really just that we were going to take the time to sift through it and identify the bits and pieces that were going to add up to a complete and full portrait of who he was. And I love the collaborative aspect of it, and it's fun working with 2 other directors and going back and forth and having to, 2 of us sell the other one on why we should be doing this or that. And I love working with the editors that we did on this project too. One in particular, Louis Erskine had worked in music as a DJ and has also been cutting for a long time. And the music he brought to this story, I really love the soundtrack. It's both the type of music that the Robinsons were listening to, but it just sort of it captures the moment as well. And when you have Jackie Robinson coming to the big leagues in 1947, he's bringing a style of play from the Negro Leagues that had really been lost in big league baseball, that working the base paths really well, agitating the pitcher with your movements off of the base, taking the extra base, and just smart hustling baseball. That had sort of gone out of the majors. And so when we do a montage of great clips that capture this in 47, we've got Manteca from Dizzy Gillespie behind it, and he's doing the same thing. He and Charlie Parker are bringing a new way of playing their instruments to jazz, that cascade of notes. And so there's a wonderful intersection between Robinson's actions on the field and Dizzy and Charlie playing their instruments. It captures a moment in time, and it's I think we're spending years looking for those intersections so we can bring it all to life.
I love it. Well, clearly you're passionate about this project, and I think, it's Jazz Appreciation Month, so what you've just brought to this idea of how we're going to be able to view these clips with this kind of soundtrack, also supplementing our historical perspective on what's happening, is a great thing.
Yeah. No, I wanted to ask now, I'm a filmmaker as well. So, I'm kind of envious. You're part of the Florentine Films family, literally. You're married to Sarah Burns, who's Ken's daughter, and you guys are collaborating in this work. So what's it like having Ken Burns as not only a mentor, but your father?
It's great. I think we love our work, and so therefore, if it bleeds over into the dinner conversation, it's not really, it's not a pain for us. And for Sarah, of course, her mother is also a filmmaker, and so she grew up around Steenbecks, and filmmaking was always in the air. And for her, she found her way to it, I think, in an appropriate route for her, which was she didn't jump right into the family business. She was intrigued and angered by the story of the Central Park Five, and after school took up writing a book about it, which then led to our film. But in that moment, the three of us saw immediately this could make for a great movie. She had earned the trust of the five. We'll get them on camera telling their stories if they're interested, and we'll really have something. And so I think the bleed between family life and our work lives works well for us, and I couldn't imagine a better way of doing it.
No, that definitely reminds me of something I saw Mr. Burns say in an archive interview where he was talking about you can't tell the story of American history without involving strongly the lives of African Americans, and the legacy of work that Florentine has done is just incredible. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I think that, Ken views race, as he likes to quote Wynton Marsalis, who said, this is the problem in the kingdom, that if we don't get right, the kingdom is going to fail. And, it's thinking about the way that we have considered Jackie Robinson over the years as this stoic, silent hero, and that we've elevated Ricky and we've elevated Reese, and we like an unthreatening, sort of muzzled race pioneer, and that's not the truth. And so we're better. The truth is more compelling. It is more complicated. It's closer to who we are, and it helps us talk about it in a way that I think brings us closer. And that maybe I don't want to sound saccharine at all, but in talking about it, maybe we get closer to having a better set of race relations. And so I think in Ken's work, in mining the past for how we have navigated this, and who got it right and who got it wrong, and how we can bridge gaps, I think it's just good for improving the conversation. And in our case, I think we'd like to say, maybe it's time to dispense with the conversation, and just for people who have been in a position of power in this dynamic, that we just listen. And I think that's what we're doing with Jackie Robinson, is that we're just listening to what he had to say, and we've never done that before.
Wow. Okay. Well, I've watched part one already, and it's just brilliant. And just thank you for just not just focusing on that 1 year where he broke the color barrier, but really painting a full portrait of his entire life, and utilizing not only the archival footage, but the stories and memories of the people who are still here to share about that. So.
Yeah, and making our jobs here at WURD a little easier too. It's one thing to be able to celebrate Jackie Robinson Day, but to have 2 nights worth of this wonderful documentary to lead up to our live event where we're going to be celebrating him and his history, and inviting the students that are going to be there to actually have had seen this documentary beforehand, and to be able to put it in their own personal perspective, their lives, is really a gift. And so we thank you for joining us on the air today, and thank you for helping bring this important work to life.
Thank you so much for having me. Enjoyed it.
Okay, that was Dave McMahon, co-director of the new movie Jackie Robinson, which airs on PBS April 11th and 12th.
It's again WHYY TV 12. For those of you here in our Philadelphia area, please watch it so that we can have some real dialogue about it here on the air, and so that people, people that are born in a certain era have their own political framework. They have their own ideas about how things happen. And people like Jackie Robinson, who were in their twilight years when we were born, we don't have the same perspective of them. So we need our elders in the listening audience to chime into this kind of archival work that's being put together, and allow us to have a bigger bubble, a bigger idea of how this worked in real time in your lives, and to be able to share in this discussion.
Definitely.
It's the honor and privilege of being here on the airwaves. Yes, Troy?
I was actually trying to see how long the movie is and all that other stuff, but I came across another headline. Did you know that Adidas is unveiling a limited edition Jackie Robinson cleat that is not available to the public? Now, I got a problem with that. Now,
sounds like people are going to be trying to clear off some space on those credit cards over the weekend.
Absolutely. It's actually black and white. It has like newspaper clipping montage of some highlights of Jackie's career.
Oh, that's cool. On the flap?
Well, on the side of the cleat, the entire cleat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But it's only going to two players who represent Adidas, Carlos Correa and Chris Bryant. I have no idea what teams these two guys play for.
Oh.
But I think now is the time for the groundswell of people, because we have the Phillies RBI
with the Ava
League.
Barbie.
Right. You have the Phillies RBI League. You have local high schools, even colleges. A lot of players would definitely, even the pros would definitely want to wear these cleats. I mean, I'd take them and put them on the mantelpiece, but, it's... Come on, Adidas, do the right thing. Let's get it popping.
You heard it here on WURD. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to talk about another person who brought dignity to the big screen and the fact that we're going to have a retrospective airing in New York, and hopefully we'll be able to do some convincing and see if they can move it around so that it comes here to Philadelphia. But plenty more arts and culture conversation here on Reelblack Radio, part of the Mojo on 900 AM WURD. We'll be right back. A little taste of the 9-brother ensemble known as the Hypnotic Brass Ensemble with a tune from their self-titled debut album called Marcus Garvey. We're conjuring up the spirit of activism on today's program. I said I'm celebrating the spirit of audacity on the Mojo today because it's necessary. In order for us to be able to really appreciate how far we've come, we've got to appreciate those moments when people have taken a stand and said either no more or yes, we will. And they proceed in that space. This is Stephanie Renee here with Mike Dennis, part of Reelblack Radio today. And before we welcome our next guest, I want to share with you a quote that Color Lines magazine just tweeted out a few moments ago from the amazing Mississippi-based freedom fighter Fannie Lou Hamer. It says, whether you have a PhD or no D, we're in this bag together. And whether you're from Morehouse or no house, we're still in this bag together. This is really a moment for us to celebrate the idea that all hands on deck, all hearts in the right place, demanding respect and dignity is a big deal, and we need to, to kind of join together in the fight.
Right on. Power to the people. Speaking of which, tonight I'll be at the United Bank building at 7 p.m. We're showing the movie Brothers with Bernie Casey and Vanessa McGee, which is, for those who don't know, it's sort of a fictionalized version of the George Jackson, Angela Davis movie. And I'm looking forward to that. And then, of course, Tuesday, we have Haley Garima, the legendary Haley Garima, filmmaker of Sankofa and Bush Mama. He's coming to the African American Museum to show his movie Ashes and Embers. That's at 7 o'clock as well. And then finally next week on Thursday night, we're showing Black Venus, Venus Noire, which is a French-Tunisian film about the Hottentot Venus.
Yes.
People say Sarah Bartman. Yes, so that'll be at 8 p.m. at the Rotunda. So, but with us on the line, I feel like we had to have met. I'm going to ask her this. Mia Mast, she's an associate professor of film at Vassar College, and she is also the author or the editor of a new book called Poitier Revisited, Reconsidering a Black Icon in the Obama Age. And she's also the co-curator of the 9-film retrospective of Sidney Poitier films. It kicks off tomorrow at the Museum of the Moving Image in Queens, New York. So I can't wait for this conversation. Hey.
It's a big deal. Hello, Mia. Welcome to WURD.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you sound great. We were a little concerned about the connection, but you sound great. So, Sidney Poitier, in the Obama age, why is now a good time to look back at this gentleman's work?
Well, I think that Sidney Poitier's career represents and demonstrates an important journey, and that we can all learn from the struggle and the difficulty of his journey. He had such a long and fascinating career, but it was one throughout which he struggled to smuggle in dignity and agency, authority and intelligence into the roles that were available to him. And his struggle is one that is linked to, the struggles of black men before him, like Paul Robeson. who was a brilliant man in every way, but was never allowed to portray anything on screen that was close to the kind of brilliance he exuded. So I think we can learn so much from Poitier's journey and career.
I just finished maybe about a little less than a year ago reading Harry Belafonte's memoir, and he speaks very clearly about the places where he and Poitier came together and broke apart. Like they had, immense respect for one another in terms of their talent, but sometimes the approach to how these things worked on screen and in life were places where they were very divergent. I wonder how, in thinking about Poitier and putting him within the context of the Obama age, how you also think about him in the context of his contemporaries like a Belafonte.
Yeah, wonderful question. Thank you. Well, one of the places where they did come together was on the production of the film fucking The Preacher.
Yes.
As you know, which is a Western that they made, which is about the shepherding of black wagon trains of newly freed slaves through hostile territory. And it's a wonderfully progressive film because it also has within it a coalition between African Americans and Native Americans that come together to fight white oppression. So, yes, you're absolutely right when you say that Belafonte has his own critique of some of the ways in which Poitier worked within the system. But, when we look even today at some of the wonderfully talented writers, directors, producers in film and television, many of them worked in a capacity where they were making crossover films or working, and not even making black direct or black oriented media before they began to focus on black characters. So if we think of the early career of Shonda Rhimes, early career of John Ridley, right, they weren't necessarily making black films or black television, and so they established a kind of credibility, and then were able to focus in ways that they wanted to. Now, Poitier had to pave the way. He was one of the people that had to pave the way for that to be possible, and he too, had to make accommodations before he was able to make some of the films he wanted to make, like fucking Preacher.
Yeah.
All right. There's a scene in Lee Daniels' The Butler that I think perfectly illustrates the conflict that people were having with Poitier's image towards the late 60s in terms of, he was very safe, his initial projects. Can you speak to that? And in the 9 films, which, how did you select the 9 films that you're showing in this retrospective?
Absolutely, no, thank you. So he was a problematic, figure for many, even though, and for many black audience members, even though so many of us respected him at the same time. Because, for example, in 1967, he is the #1 box office star. Mm-hmm. And that's partially because he's got what we call the 67 trilogy out in theaters. He is the three of the hottest films, and that includes Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, In the Heat of the Night, and To Sir with Love. Mm-hmm. But, they're like on a spectrum, right? On a kind of political spectrum. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner is a deeply problematic film because it's a film in which his character, Dr. John Wade Prentice, is so over-endowed with qualities and qualifications. He's an internationally, trained doctor, physician, specialist. He's extremely articulate, very, well-dressed, very sophisticated, urbane. Just to be in a relationship, his character is so over-endowed with qualities just so that he can be good enough to be dating this very ordinary white woman. And so many people looked at some of his early film roles between 1950 and 1960 and 65, 67 and took issue with the ways in which his characters seem to have to overcompensate for their blackness, right, to make them appealing to white audiences. But if you watch those films closely, and I'm hoping that people will, particularly the films that we put into the series, you'll see that there's a lot more nuance there, and there are many ways in which his characters are resisting, doing what James Baldwin talked about when he described how black actors smuggled in hints of reality that were not even in the script. Mm-hmm. So to answer your second question, how do we choose the film? So No Way Out is the first film that we begin with. This is his first major role. It's a film released in 1950. He plays a doctor who has to treat a white, bigoted patient, a white racist patient who is giving him no end of trouble. And it's an example of how throughout his career, Poitier's characters had to turn the other cheek, and how they did so rather magnanimously, really just turning it out. But it's also a great performance, and it shows you the triumph of the way black dignity triumphs and defeats white racism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that screens tomorrow at 2 p.m. at the Museum of the Moving Image in Astoria, Queens.
And then we're also I'm sorry. I was going to say, then we're also showing In the Heat of the Night, as well as Buck and the Preacher, just to give some other titles.
Right. I wanted to just interject one more question in terms of we have a lot of debate that goes on over our airwaves here at WURD about African American versus global black diasporic community. And I wonder, in thinking about putting Sidney Poitier and juxtaposing him against the Obama age, the other piece about what he and Belafonte shared in common, and some of the other folks who were prominent during their era, the fact that they were not necessarily American born, or that they are of immigrant parentage, and still helping us to shape what we understand as the black experience in America on the large screen.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you that they were both actively a part of that, not only on screen but off screen as well. As many people know, Poitier and Belafonte were political activists, were protesters, who utilized their celebrity, as did Eartha Kitt and others, to call attention to the civil rights movement, the civil rights struggle. So they identified, to your point, with a notion of being black in the diaspora, a part of the black diaspora, and became not only citizens and Americans and identifying with an African-American struggle, but thought as a global struggle for black liberation. And some of his other films demonstrate that as well. We're not showing Cry the Beloved Country, for example. We're not showing some of the films that are set in England or in Africa, but those films are there for people to pursue as well. And I'm hoping that this retrospective will pique people's curiosity and encourage them to go beyond the 9 films that are part of this series. But it will be very exciting to see these films on the big screen.
Yes.
Yeah, just an incredible body of work, and it's time. Poitier's still alive and well and with us, and I think it's, for those who haven't had the chance to see these movies, it's definitely an opportunity to see them. And a lot of them are being shown in 35 millimeters. So,
nice.
And I guess tomorrow you're going to be introducing a couple of them.
Yes, exactly. I'm very excited about being at the museum and introducing No Way Out. And I hope to be present at some other screenings as well, and look forward to meeting audience members.
What do we need to do to get this retrospective down here to Philly?
Oh, well, we can work on that. We'll follow up after this phone call.
Excellent. Well, see, I'm glad to know that at least you're open to that, because, we have some real adventurous folks who have no problem hopping on a bus or a train and heading up to New York to be able to participate with the plan, as you have set it forth for this weekend. But, thinking about the idea of being able to convene audiences and to, rather than just the privacy of our homes, to come out in public and see these in 35 millimeter and really experience them all over again as a group is a beautiful opportunity. And we're very glad that you had a hand in putting this together so that people can enjoy it, this 9-film retrospective as you've currently conceived it.
Oh, thank you so much. And I am very excited for audiences, and particularly members of the black community, to come out, as you said, to be part of a communal experience of enjoying these films, experiencing them, and talking about them, talking about some of the compromises, some of the issues, but also some of the triumphs. So thank you so much.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Mia. Mia Mass, curator of the new Sidney Poitier 9-film retrospective at the Museum of the Moving Image, which kicks off tomorrow, or this weekend, and then continues next weekend in Queens, New York.
Nice. And we got to take a quick break, but this is how we're moving through it today.
Yeah.
This whole idea of the spirit of audacity as it is embodied in our guests, in the work that they're putting out into the world, and how you can partake. We are going to be joined by a familiar voice and face on the line as we conclude today's Real Black Radio when we return after these messages. Now, of course, Layla is one of those voices that could sing the ABCs, and I would love it. But I also love it when it is combined with all of these up-and-coming instrumental talents, and she seems very committed to being able to be in collaboration with these folks that are finding their way in the industry as, you know, kind of she fought to be recognized for so long, and now she's on a Grammy-winning role
she got the Grammys,
and everything else. So from the album titled Velvet Portraits, that was saxophonist Terrace Martin, along with additional vocals from Layla Hathaway on a song called Oakland. Shout out to everybody who went on WURD's Coast to Coast trip and got a chance to see Oakland firsthand. But we saw Kamasi Washington and his work with Kendrick Lamar and how he's blown up and been able to do things. So Terrace Martin is also part of that same crew that provided that very eclectic soundscape under To Pimp a Butterfly, who is moving on and now doing his own jazz thing. So during Jazz Appreciation Month, we're tying it all together.
Oh, now, before we jump into our next guest, we got to talk about Empire.
Okay.
Which I didn't see this week. It's on my
Quickly.
DVR. Your thoughts? Your thoughts? It's back.
It is back. I was not at all impressed with the debut show of the second half of the season.
Okay.
So I wasn't sure if I was going to stick with it. I appreciated Wednesday night's episode, especially Flippity Flop. That was hilarious to me. But I just want, and the storytelling, the pacing of it is weird right now. I needed to settle back down into, and it was always trying to cram a lot into every episode, but it's starting to feel a little disjointed to me. I need the writing pool to sort of come back and focus a little bit more.
Yeah, I've kind of tuned out a little bit. They just try and throw everything against the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah.
I've given up, but you know they're not authentically black the way they started out to be. But here's someone on the line, definitely authentically black and Jewish and divorced,
yes, all of the
dangerous
things.
And divalicious.
And back in our city, our fair city of Philadelphia, to share more of her one-woman show talents, Rain Pryor now rejoins us on the line. Welcome back to Word.
Thank you.
It is always a pleasure. I so feel like you're my sister from another mother, so it's always great to have you on the line.
Oh, thank you. I wish I was in studio. I'm not even in Philly yet until sound check.
Okay, yeah, you have a show tonight at the Prince Music Theater.
I do.
Divorced, Dangerous, and Divalicious. Is this your first time bringing this show to Philly?
Yes, it is.
Wow, tell us about it.
It is. Well, it's jazz, blues music, and some jokes thrown in, and stories about love lost and love gained, and heartbreak and getting through it.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a sense.
And it's what I love to do. I did it here in New York last year, and to be compared to being like a younger Bette Midler and Liza Minnelli, and got compared to some great jazz greats like Billie Holiday and Sarah Vaughan, and that was just like, wow, really? Okay.
Wow.
Indeed. Well, I mean, it's one thing we have had the documentaries, we've had different iterations of your shows. You in a cabaret setting is what I think a lot of people in our listening audience will really kind of gravitate to. This is yet another opportunity for us to experience you live on stage, but in a different context than we've seen you the last couple times you've been to town.
Yeah, and I always reinvent myself. So I'm always doing new things because I think a lot of people don't know what it is that I do. And so I'm like, well, I also do this. I was born around music. My dad played drums. My dad played piano. He could kind of play the guitar. He used to sing jazz blues music. He was a cabaret singer before he ever became Richard Pryor, the stand-up. So it's in our life to do this.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited to I love when I come to Philly. I love the audiences in Philly. I love the vibe. So I'm really looking forward to tonight's show.
Excellent.
And yeah.
Yeah. Now you say songs of love and loss. Now I would pay money if you did "I Will Survive." Is that
Is that on the docket?
You know what? That's not even in the docket.
Darn it!
That's like a whole different genre. But yeah,
But you've gone through a lot, and you're putting it into your show.
Yeah, like I have songs like songs from Etta James, all different things that kind of tell their own story themselves, and and if I feel the mood, I talk in the middle of it. My favorite part of the evening is doing my ode to Erykah Badu and Jill Scott with My Funny Valentine, like the whole neo soul meets poetry.
Gotcha. Well, that is
and that's my favorite part because it's so much fun for me.
Right. Well, what this whole idea of artistic presentation and how we interpret, how we pull in. I was thinking about you earlier this week. After I heard that you were coming to town, I also saw an article that someone wrote about a new art exhibit that's looking at your father's Live at Sunset Strip performance, and they have 3 different shots of his, just moments where they pause it and they focus in on hand gestures and facial expressions. How have you had a chance to see it, or you've heard?
What? No, I haven't had a chance to see the exhibit yet. Yeah, no.
Yeah, I just thought it was fascinating. A fascinating way to kind of look at the way that we share ourselves personally.
But you know what's so funny about what you're talking about? To me, that's jazz.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? That's jazz. My dad did stand-up, but the stories he told, the way that he told it and who he was, that's jazz because he created that sound in stand-up. Does that make sense?
It does, indeed.
Yeah, and so it's, I can't wait.
No, I know you're coming to Philly to sing for us, but we can't have you on the air. And like last time you were here in the studio, we talked about Black Lives Matter. Now, it's starting to die down a little bit. But what are your thoughts on this Trump situation and the whole political race right now?
We're in a very precarious time. And we are listening to voices of old, presenting old thoughts and old theories because they want to win. And that's how I feel about Trump. I haven't decided even in terms of between, do I feel the burn or do I feel a Clinton? The thing is, it's still politics.
Yeah.
No matter what, it's still politics. But who should be in the office that will represent the entirety of a people, entirety of a nation? The thing is, we don't concentrate. So when you have someone like Trump speaking his rhetoric, it's the rhetoric that my parents marched against, and to have their rights heard that are being diminished.
Yeah.
And anybody, to me, I don't care if you have money. If you're a person with money, you're about to lose all your money to a megalomaniac. Because he's not for the people. He's all about himself.
Yeah.
Cruz is another one because he's all about an ideology. He's not about a presidency. And so we're in this very precarious of times. And as a people, we're having to fight a fight that we shouldn't be having to fight anymore. And my thing is, who are going to be the next generation of black leaders, not just the Black Lives Matter, that are going to stand up and be entrepreneurial, who are going to really harness and focus in on our education system to raise that conscious level, because this is a mind game that's being played, which is why we're feeling we need to fight.
Yeah.
When the truth is we are so powerful and have always have been, which is why they want us to fight.
And I'm glad that Mike asked that question, because I always think about the fact that you are so open and personal in the work that you present to the world. You're also Lotus's mommy. So, I mean, what kind of conversations are you having with your daughter right now about all these things that are going on?
She sees it. She sees it. She's like, why do they say the things they say, Mommy?
Yeah.
Like, where do I stand in this world? Because kids, if you look at it, kids are taught this stuff. Kids are taught hate. Kids are taught to be against something. But when we raise a consciousness of not thinking in that way, thinking of our power and what we have in the structure, and that's what I try to give her, is that you can be anything it is you want to be. I think my kid's going to end up being a scientist, really, not a performer, although she has that skill.
Yeah.
But I see her leaning towards the science. So my thing is, how can she be the best at what she can be with her big hair? Because it doesn't matter. With her big hair, she's black. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I don't care how gold her skin is. She's black. And so how is she going to be able to define herself as an independent, strong woman?
Yeah.
Black woman.
You took her to see Zoopolis?
I did.
Zootopia.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
She loved it, and she got it. She got it. First of all, I was shocked at that movie. I didn't expect it to be all like that.
Yeah, me either.
That I was floored, and I was like, oh, this is going to really make a lot of people angry. This is going to make a lot of, you don't know what you're really watching.
Definitely.
And it was, but it's the truth, isn't it? That's what we do. We systemically try to tear people down by, putting those little gems in their heads. And that's what's going on. But it's been going on for years. It's just now we have the internet, so it's all a big focal point. So again, like I say, who are going to be the leaders that know how to fight in a way that actually makes change, conscious change, because it really is about changing the mental picture we have of ourselves and how others perceive us. That's deep.
Yeah.
Well, I'm unfortunately I'm not going to be able to make it to the show tonight, but I hope everybody who's listening. I'm sorry.
But when we knew you were coming to town, we had to give an opportunity and reach out to you so that you could let everyone in our listening audience know that you were going to be here doing this amazing show. And I hope this won't be the last time.
I hope not either. I really do. I hope I come back again to Philly and perform.
Yes.
We keep growing. That's the whole thing. So I'm excited tonight, 8 o'clock, the Raz Room at the Prince Theater. Be there or be square.
Yeah, and congratulations on the award for the documentary.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for having me there too. When I did
Oh, absolutely.
When I did the film, I really appreciate it.
In light of our entire history of showing movies. So.
Yes, indeed. So the next time you're in town, ma'am, you must make a plan to come back to WURD so we can sit down and chat again.
I will, sister. I will. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Travel safe.
Okay.
And again, ladies and gentlemen, that is Rain Pryor. She is going to be live cabaret style at the Raz Room at the Prince Music Theater at Broad and Chestnut this evening. And there's just one show, one performance, 8 p.m. Doors open 1 hour before, 2 drink minimum. So, just take that in this black box theater setting. So it's intimate, it's fun. You get a chance to hear her sing and rhyme a little bit, it sounds like.
I'm sure she's going to hang out. So.
Yes, and hang out in our fair city of Philadelphia.
All right.
And so that's just about it, Mike.
Yeah.
Any other announcements that you must get in before we have to shift focus a little bit?
Well, go see Rain, but if you want to come see Brothers tonight, I'll be there at the 30th and Lancaster at 7 p.m. And then Tuesday is the big one, Haley Garimo. Like if you're a filmmaker, if you're serious about any kind of black stories, Sankofa is just one of the best black independent films ever made. And we have the honor and privilege of having the master, the auteur, coming to Philadelphia African American Museum this Tuesday night at 7 p.m. to show his movie Ashes and Embers.
Yeah.
So I just encourage everybody to come out and support.
Absolutely. And of course, WURD is a media partner for that screening. You can go to our website and go to the calendar on Tuesday, April 12th. You can click the link and go directly to the link where you can purchase your tickets in advance. We would love to have a capacity crowd at the African American Museum to support this film, this filmmaker, the entire Array Now movement. We want to see more of our stories on screens and have an opportunity to meet and interact with the filmmakers. It's a big doggone deal. And so WURD, we would love to see you in the house, and we'll continue to encourage you to buy those tickets and be with us next Tuesday night.
Definitely. Well, it was fun talking to you. Say hello to my homegirl Reese.
Yes, we will, who is already on the line. So we are going to be celebrating our local creatives, our creative community, and the work that they are doing, and let you know about how you can support that as well. So Philadelphia's own Reese joins us at the top of the noon hour as we continue with today's edition of The Mojo. Stay tuned.
Make them laugh, make them cry, for the young, for the old. Come on, let's shake it, make it and make movies. Reelblack, I really like the way you do me.
You've been listening to a podcast of The Mojo with Steph Renee. Weekdays, 10 a.m. till noon. Follow us on your favorite social media like Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter for up-to-the-minute information at 900 AM WURD.